All right, welcome to the Sweet Talk. Today is Monday, March 29th, 2021. I am your host, Kim Mattina. I am a Google certified trainer and educator. And I want to, this is my first show back. I had taken off a few weeks because I had a death in the family. So it's nice to get back to some type of normalcy. So I appreciate everyone's kind words and thoughts through my PLN on Twitter. So I appreciate everyone. Thank you so much. So I am really excited today to have Miss Jaime Donally on. Jaime, I've been following you for many years. She is an ed tech AR VR expert. And if you need to know anything about AR and VR, she's the girl to go to. She actually was a former math teacher and turned technology integration specialist. She is from East Texas, just so you know, okay? So Jersey, Texas, we may sound a little different, but it's all good. She is definitely an independent education consultant. Check out her blog at arvrinEDU.com. So welcome to the Sweet Talk, Jaime.
Thank you so much. I will tell you, I'll start off by saying nobody's an expert. I mean, we're all learning this together. And honestly, I spend so much time going out and trying to research, but there are things that I still learn about from everyone else and just sharing and constant change. And we're going to talk probably about that today. Those changes that have taken place in Google and some of the things that they've kind of distance themselves a little bit from AR and VR, but those changes that are happening and everybody's staying well connected. It's really community, like you were talking about. The PLN really makes a difference, and I'm so sorry for your loss. I did not know that. I apologize, Kim, but I'm glad that I'm honored to be your first guest since you've come back.
Thank you. We have to go because I'm going to start crying. So, what was I going to say to you? So, yeah, well, to loop back to what you just said, I totally agree. I tell people, they say to me, oh, you're the Google guru. No, I am not an expert. I am always learning something new, because once you call yourself an expert, you stop learning. So, like, we have that in common right there. I like that you just said that, because I think that with ed tech, in any tech, it evolves so fast that if you're not learning something and evolving with it, you're gonna fall right behind. So it's nice that you're actually. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now with this month that we were just talking about off air, and then and then we can dive into some of our conversations about what we're gonna some of the apps that we're gonna talk about because of Google Expeditions discontinued.
Yeah, well, I'll start by saying that I don't like writing. So it's something for me that's a struggle. I would much rather just say it, go on and do a presentation or go and do training and or do a webinar, right? I prefer that method for me because that's my best way of presenting it in the way that I understand the best, right? I will learn better by watching somebody else do it and to participate with them. Writing it out is such a struggle, but I can't tell you how many people request it. So probably more often than not, they actually, if they want to sit through a session or they want to go to the webinar or whatever, that's great, but they also want it written down. So the goal of, writing the book, I just finished my second book, the Immersive Classroom. But in both cases, writing the book, being a very real struggle for me, but it being a preference for a lot of people, like being able to highlight things and write their own notes. But the second book that just came out, the Immersive Classroom, has been very interactive. Every image in the book is interactive. So whether that become alive through augmented reality, whether it be hyperlinked, whether there be QR codes, whatever it is throughout the book, you're going to see tons of interactions, because I know it's one thing to read about it, but to see it actually take place. And some of the tools that I'm recommending, I'm encouraging people to see that experience. They have to go download it. And then it kind of piques your interest. So the past 2 years, this is my third year doing 31 days of AR, VR, and EDU, which is just like literally every day a new blog comes out. In the past 2 years, it was like, okay, let's gather the resources, things that are coming out, new updates. This year, I took a little bit of a different slant. I took all of the content out of the books because actually in the book, in the back, in the index, there's over 100 different resources. So if you go through, there's 16 pages. Oh, here we go. 16 pages of tools that are all been categorized for you, named, given the subject, what type of app it is, whether it be mobile or web or on a VR headset, what type of needs it might have, what grade levels. So, I felt like this was a good place because I can talk about it in this blog, I can show you, but then to go back and even get further into the book. And I didn't give any of the experiences away from the book, by the way. So I was very tempted. I was like, oh, I'll just pull out a different, from the book. And I was like, I could do better than that. Like, let's show another one. So when they go into the book and they see it, it's like a surprise, right? Like throughout the whole thing. So that was the goal of this particular month of 31 days of AR, VR, and EDU. Yes, it was there to give the resources, but it was tying a big bow around it too. It's saying, this is not the only place you can get the resources. There's a ton more out there. And for me, it was piquing interest. I almost feel like I don't really talk to the average teacher. I typically talk to the trainer, like you, right? I'll talk to other people that then bring it out to that teacher. So, I do have connections with teachers, of course, but for the most part, I feel like it's more of like a train the trainer type model. So giving them the resources to bring back to their teachers as well, so that they're ready to jump in head first with this technology is just, it's the starting phase, it's piquing interest, it's giving those basic tools to get started, and then hopefully they're able to drive from there.
So I know, I look to you for AR, VR resources, and I know we connected, and I came out and asked you a few months ago, hey, would you like to be on the show? Because, Google Expeditions is going to retire, Tour Creator is going to retire, Polly's going to retire. And a lot of people, and myself, I'm not happy about it. I know a lot of people built curriculum around Google Expeditions, and I certainly did myself. And now people have to start and look for something new. Some of those tours are going to be moved over into Google Arts and Culture, where you can explore virtual field trips through there, in Street View as well through Google Arts and Culture. And Google Arts and Culture does have an augmented reality piece, but I just think people are going to be expecting something more. To just, dive right in and take the place of Google Expeditions and have the same expectations as what they had. And it's not going to be, it's going to be different. So that's how we connected. And I know that's one of the apps that I started teaching myself and becoming more familiar with it over time. But it's, with your expertise and your 31 days of AR, VR, and EDU, I started to, like I said, I started to go through each blog post, read about it, and then cross off ones that don't pertain to me, and then actually install the ones that I liked. So I wanted to share some of those apps with you, but what were some of the suggestions that you can provide to users that may fill that gap for Google Expeditions?
Right. I'll tell you that I've been a liker of Google Expeditions. I can't say a lover of Expeditions. I think because it's Google, so my expectations were way up there, oh, this is going to be like nobody's ever seen, like I would expect with Apple, right? Or any other large company, or Microsoft. Hey, you're going to blow us out of the park. I feel like, though, the ones that are most successful aren't the ones that are so different, blowing us out of the water. It's really the ones that take the technology and make it simple. And I think that's why Expeditions did so well. And I feel like there's a lot of companies out there that do really well for that very reason. they've brought it to a level that anybody and everybody can use it, which is typically my MO. I mean, I feel like that's exactly where we need to be in education. So they do some good things. They've also done some great things and been the first, VR kind of being their first, the cardboard concept really started from Google. That whole thing, mobile VR, really started with them, which I think is in turn the transition to WebXR. So I think that there's a lot of phases in all of this that we've went through, and seeing kind of the insight as to where these companies have gone. In my opinion, what I'm seeing Google doing is consolidating. I think that what is probably happening is that they're taking all of these pieces and they're bringing it all together. For instance, Google Lens is one of the recommended resources, right? I'm loving this. And I've loved Google as the app for a long time, the browser and Chrome, right? I mean, I actually still use Safari, believe it or not, on my phone. But everything on my computer, on my Mac, is Chrome. So it's like I'm going back and forth. But I will say, in using it and recognizing kind of how they're moving towards web-enabled AR and VR experiences, there's so much promise there. So you'll see two things. I mentioned Google XR. So, the AR concepts that are going to be, that we already see, that we've already seen all the animals coming out in the browser, but there's so much more. So I really went into like how much more, and kind of gave that visual in the blog so you could see, no, look at these science concepts that are interwoven in here, and historical locations that we can now go to. So there's some really incredible things built in now that weren't when it was first released. I could see that continuing to grow. Google Lens is doing the same. Yeah, go for it.
Ask you I just want to clear this up for the viewer, because I don't know, everybody's on different levels here. When you say WebXR, can you just explain what that is?
Right. That's a great question. So it started off as you would hear it as web VR. And that was when you were seeing virtual reality experiences through your browser. So I can go on to, many people might know about CoSpaces. There's actually a lot in Google that they were doing a lot of experiments with virtual reality. So you had different developers coming in and creating content on the browser. Now, the browser is going to be much more limited than you could have with an application on a mobile device, for instance. But it is growing and changing and evolving pretty quickly. And I would say that's rapidly going to be changing in the next few years, mainly because I see wearable technology coming out pretty quickly. But with web VR, then you started seeing web AR. And that is when you start seeing augmented reality experiences through your browser. Now that, again, was through a lot of experiments, right? Even Google had a page literally for AR and VR experiences. And so while you're going into these augmented reality experiences, instead of downloading an app, loading all the content, waiting for your district to load it on, or waiting for that to have enough storage on your phone, or updating that iOS or your operating system so that you can run those apps, all of those things, or constantly updating the apps, all of those problems are kind of washed away within web XR, if you will. So when we say web AR, web VR, that's web XR, all those realities, right? And so as we're seeing these technologies kind of converge on our browser, we're able to see this. I'm able to be much more optimistic on what this looks like in the classroom, because I don't know about you, but asking for apps in a classroom, like I am always saying, hey, just download this app. And then they'll be like, Jamie, that's wonderful. And like fairy tale land.
Reality.
In reality, I got to go through 10 steps before this ever gets loaded. And it starts with them evaluating every app. Does it actually meet those standards of which we think those standards have been met, right? Not the vision of how to use the app, just the app, right? And all these complications. So this eliminates that. And I'm just really excited to see those opportunities come to our classroom much sooner. And I think that they're more flexible. It could be used on a Chromebook. It could be used now. And when I say Chromebook, I say that hesitantly, because our Chromebooks that we typically have in our classroom, they don't work with this kind of technology because we're buying the cheaper ones. That's why we're doing it. It's for the, cost. And so typically when you're looking at a Chromebook that's going to function, you're going to see Android apps that you can download, right? The technology is built in to function with the augmented and virtual reality experiences. But 99% of the time, you're gonna find that most Chromebooks today in our classroom do not function well with immersive technology, which makes me really sad. But that even might be a whole conversation for later on. But I will say, when you're talking about mobile devices, tablets, computers, there are ways that we can now use this that we really couldn't before. And so that's exciting to me. And I think there's a lot of promise in that. And I hope that that's, again, mentioning wearables, wearing glasses, those technologies that are really going to be released here very, very soon. I think that's going to be a big transition in what we see in our technology in our classroom as well.
Well, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
That gives me something hopeful to look forward to, because honestly and truly, I'm going to miss Google Expeditions just because it was simple to use. It wasn't difficult. They were saying it didn't update that often, but that was okay because everybody knew how to run a tour, or the kids can do it themselves. So, so to circle back to your blog and your 31 days in AR, VR, and EDU, I actually appreciated every blog post that you created, because they were very consistent, very easy to follow. And I was able to grab a few of the apps and learn something. So Google Lens is great. I have it on my Android phone, but I didn't know that it can translate into different languages, which was cool.
Yeah.
I knew you can hold it over an object and it'll tell you what it is. That was cool. I did like the assembler EDU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That blew me away, because when you wrote in your blog that this is like Google Classroom but for AR, it was just what? And then I went in and created an account today, and I was blown away. So I'm going to I want to try to learn the platform so that I can build something in STEM for kids to do for next year, because I'm thinking for next year now.
Right.
So
and there's
exciting.
Most everything that I shared too is free. So when you're talking I want to say that if there was, additional add-ons that you bought, or, for the most part, you're getting started and it's free. And then if you use it a ton, it might be in a subscription or something you're paying additional for. But, 99% of the things that I share are going to be things that you don't need to have money to pay for right off the bat. It's really just getting started and kind of dabbling. And then if you find, hey, this is something I'm going to use a lot of, this is something that we really need, then you can pursue that. But you're not stuck with buying something like an expeditions kit. If I'm honest, that bothered me from the beginning. The day
just said too.
Yeah. The day that it came out and we were told that it was $10,000, I was at ISTE. And I nearly fell off the bed. I was like, how can they justify that cost? I was so angry about it. It was just I think I was in Colorado when ISTE was in Colorado last. And I just remember being so angry that they have these Android devices off brand. Now, Google's not the one that created them. It was Best Buy. Essentially, they put together these kits and they marketed well. And then you have people now saying, I know. I can't tell you how many people have reached out to say, Jamie, what do I do now? And I'm like, well,
what do we do with these devices?
They can still be used for immersive technology. So that's the promising part of it. The only thing that I've noticed many districts do is they've locked it down to purely only using it for expeditions. And so nobody really knows how to use it outside of that. So I would say if in any purchase any school district makes, they should always have a bigger vision than AR and VR. That alone should not justify that kind of massive purchase. In my opinion, I would never recommend that to schools, but I understand where they're coming from now. We run into a lot of router issues and connectivity issues with that because I mean, for years before they finally started solving some of those problems, I couldn't believe schools were still buying it. But here's the deal. They did the best marketing. They marketed to education better than anybody else. And at the end of the day, they got the most visibility. And so because of that, that's why schools bought it. That's all they heard about. That's all they learned about. And so I think that's, again, why we do what we do, right? I mean, it's going out there to say, there are better options out there to do what you want to do. And 9 times out of 10, when somebody says, which should I purchase? I always start off with the conversation. Let's see what your vision is. What are your goals? What is your expectations at the end of the day? Because that's really going to matter when it comes down to making those kinds of decisions. And not once have I ever recommended the Expeditions kit. I'll tell you that.
It's sad because I'm in the same situation too.
Yeah.
Julie saying, I mean, we just, what do I do with all these devices now? Yes, we can use them. That's why I'm trying to research some of the apps that you recommended and maybe push some of those apps onto the phones.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like just for example, like that Assembler EDU, can use that and join my classroom and they can create a space,
Right.
But it's still a shame and it is going to go away. So, we got to figure out another way to utilize these devices and equipment so that we don't feel that the money was wasted,
Right.
So we talked about Google Lens. We talked a little bit about Google Arts and Culture. I find that Google Arts and Culture does have the augmented reality piece in there. And you can view through virtual reality, through Street View, and take virtual field trips in there. So that has a lot of promise as well.
Yeah.
And you can share that right in Google Classroom, or you can take the link and paste the link somewhere in your, in your learner management system. Are there any other ones? I saw you recommended Jig.
Jigspace. Yeah. Jigspace does some great stuff. Oh my gosh. Let me just I'm going to just speak out some of these tools. So,
because I honestly, I forgot my list at school. I'm just going off the top of my head what I wrote down.
Well, the ones that are purely Google that I would say you definitely want to check out is Google Earth projects. I know Google Earth has been around for a long time, but their projects have a lot of promise. I think that there's so much more flexibility for that than doing Tour Creator. I actually like Google Earth projects better. So there's some really great promise in that way. And Google Lens, again, going back to that and all the functions it does, again, it's like taking Google Translate and, your browser and I'm trying to remember all the features inside of that now because it was just enormous. But you're taking all these different apps, again, consolidating them into one. And Tilt Brush is something, that I'm sure everybody's familiar with, but that's going to be in your VR headsets. I really like the fact that the flexibility, even though Poly's going away, the flexibility of being able to use Sketchfab right now, it has some great promise. Now, it's not as great as Google Poly in the sense of not bringing in the animation from Tilt Brush that you would use, like the animated brushes, like the glitter and the sparkles and the fire and all the electricity, all the things that you can do inside of Google Tilt Brush and drawing. You lose that when you bring it over, to Sketchfab. But it is something that I think Sketchfab has recognized, and I think that's something that they're going to probably be more persistent on now that Poly's going away.
Sketchfab, what is Sketchfab?
Yeah, that's a great. So Sketchfab is actually 3D. It's like Poly, right?
Okay.
People are posting their 3D objects that they've created, graphics. It's not educational. So you're going to see things on there that are not for kids to scroll through in the feed. But it is a place to house, if you will, your library of 3D content. So it could be things you're drawing in virtual reality. It could be things you're designing in any of the 3D software that you might use. You can do it through your apps on your mobile devices. You can do it through web-based. I'm trying to think of which one that I just did some app smashing because it did not come up to mind right away. I did something with, oh, that's under 31 days. I did some app smashing with Merge, and that was a way to be able to create 3D content. And I just want to find it because now it's going to be on the top of my mind.
You mentioned it somewhere. I'm looking for it too. I don't remember. I remember reading the blog.
Hello.
App smash. What was
Tinkercad. So yeah, Tinkercad's been around for a little while, but they have a great integration now that you can build online. You can have classes online. I mean, again, going back to the foundation of AR, VR has to start with the digital assets. If you don't have any digital assets, then you got no VR or AR experience. So that is a foundational, skill that students need to have in building 3D content. So Tinkercad's great because it's free and you can invite your classes in and they get to use that. And then they get to immediately push out to other platforms. They can download those and then re-upload, like CoSpaces. If you can't find something 3D in CoSpaces, guess what? You can go in there, you can create your own 3D content, you can upload it. But with Merge, what's really nice with the Merge Cube is that you can actually automatically push it out to Object Viewer. So whatever I build, it actually has an integration in there. It also has an integration with Kai's Clan, which is augmented and virtual reality with coding and robotics. So amazing program. So you have these integrations that make it really easy to immediately push out your content to these other platforms. But with Tinkercad and being able to take those 3D pieces, so even if you don't have VR, you're not building that stuff in Tilt Brush, for instance, you can still build 3D content and upload it into places like Sketchfab. And once you have it somewhere and they know what to do with it, that's when the real beauty starts. Because I mentioned these Sketchfab and Google Poly a bunch in my blogs. And that's because there's tools like Arlupa or Arise, where you get to build your own augmented reality experiences. And if it's housed in Sketchfab, you're literally just taking the link and bringing it over. So I can go and design Tilt Brush, and then I can layer it on top of a postcard. And then when they scan the postcard, my animated object, 3D printed, designed in virtual reality, appears in augmented reality on top of my postcard. So it's the flexibility, the app smashing, everything that goes along with that. There's just so many wonderful opportunities, but it starts 3D content creation. Then it moves into storing that content somewhere. Then it moves into using that in virtual reality experiences like CoSpaces, augmented reality experiences like Arlupa or Rise.
So Arise was day 29.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I dabbled into it. I didn't really understand too much about it. Is it just building your own space, like your own? Like you said something about layers, like you're building your layer. Like, is that? Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Mm-hmm. So if I were, for instance, a book has Arise actually multiple times. So what I would do is I would take, I'll show you an example here. I would take Arise and I would go on to the studio, and then I would say, I want this image to come to life. And the way that I want it to come to life, let's see. The way that I would want it to come to life could be scanning something. So trigger images is the way that that would be labeled. Or it could be that they scan a QR code. It could be that they go to a specific link, and that's going to be the WebXR. So that automatically populates even without an app. But there's quite a bit that you can do. I'm looking at, let's see, this is WebXR, that's iJack, and that's assembler on that one page. That's amazing.
Yeah, iJack's another one, right?
It is. Yeah. So all of these are kind of your creation tools of which you can create these experiences. And when you scan them, then something layers on top of that image, on top of that trigger image.
It's kind of like the trigger image is kind of like a marker.
It is. It is like a marker. Marker's another term. It's like a barcode. To me, the way that I often explain it is that you're saying, okay, well, when you create this and your phone in that app scans that image, it's scanning a barcode. It's identifying the different components of that. It has enough contrast to when it scans it, it tells what to layer on top of that image or through that image or around that image, whatever it is. The image is kind of the spot that defines where to place everything. So yeah, I mean, I'm just like going through, I can't believe I haven't found an Arise yet. Oh, this is our Lupa, but this is a good example. So our Lupa here, once you see this image, you open up the our Lupa app, and then you're able to scan that image, which is actually of a pig being dissected. And when you scan it, this particular one is a flat video that's layered on top. And you can see that experience that's taking place in virtual reality of that pig dissection. So instead of me just talking about Victory XR, I'm showing you Victory XR. Like you're actually going in and you're getting the view of that virtual reality experience. So it's times like that that I think are really necessary for people to make those connections. Because again, when you're reading it, me even writing it, right? Explaining that it's layered, you're like, well, what exactly does that mean? It means that something's layered on top, whether it be 3D, flat, an image, a video, animated, not animated, whatever you're layering on top, it will appear and layer on top of that to give the illusion that something is there that actually isn't there. And that's that augmented reality piece of it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I dabbled a little bit in iJack. Not.
Mm-hmm.
When I say I dabbled, I just kind of dabbled. I didn't dive deep at all.
Sure.
This is a whole new, like I have experience with Merge and CoSpaces, mm-hmm. Tinkercad, but all of these other apps, Arise, Assembler, Jig, like it's a whole new world for me, you know? And my goal is to try to build some type of augmented reality tour mm-hmm. for the teachers when they come into my STEM class. So what I want to, like, just say, teachers studying, I don't want to say insects because insects is more common. You can do that through the WebXR, Google search.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But let's say maybe like weather patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to build an augmented reality tour showing or tornado or hurricane or cold front coming in. Do I have to actually create these objects, or would they be in the library of that app that I use?
So for weather, you're going to have a tough time finding that in somebody's library. That would be a hard one. But what you can find is you could find weather in Sketchfab, and they can layer inside of these apps like our Lupa and Arise, where you can actually layer those weather like that tornado cycling through, and that would be tied to that trigger image. So when they scan whatever you have sitting there that would be your trigger or your marker, then they would actually see that tornado coming through.
So Sketchfab is going to be the source where I can look through the library to find these objects so that I don't have to create them.
Yeah, it's really going to replace Poly in that way, because there are things out there in Google Poly, but most of what you've seen in Google Poly has been created in Tour Creator or in inside of Tilt Brush. So a lot of people have pushed it out to Poly because of that, right? But you don't see a lot of people uploading 3D content just from scratch in Poly. Not anymore, now that Sketchfab's out there. But Sketchfab, I will say, they have a lot of paid for content. It's hard to siphon through the free, but it's out there. So you may not find exactly what you're looking for. You may have to settle. But oftentimes there's going to be things like merge that have created just that, the weather patterns, right? That's going to be inside of those merge cubes, and you're going to see those things kind of come to life. So sometimes it's really a matter of just searching for what's actually out there available. Sometimes it's a matter of just, rebuilding from scratch because there's just nothing out there like it, and it's simple enough to make that static 3D object. Sometimes, AR Maker is a good one. So actually something that's comparable to AR Maker that I think would be a great one to check out is Doodle Lens. So in Doodle Lens, I had shared with a book on the beetles. So you're talking about different insects. And so there were pages on there where I was able to capture with my camera. And then for the most part, it made it transparent. And there were some spots that I had to go through and erase around it. And then I was able to stamp that around my scene with all those beetles. So it really is just flat. But it's flat. If I were to walk around it, it's not a 3D object. But it gives the illusion that it's 3D just by the way it was placed, right? So it's really easy to use when it comes to using your mobile device. And, AR Maker was one of the ones that I, early on had brought out some of those features and some of the integrations that they have. So there's some good ones out there. Halo AR is one of the ones that just came out very recently. Actually, it was my day one this year. And that one actually is on the front cover of the book. So when you scan the book with Halo AR, you'll see a whale pop out, and then you see the whale full size on top of, and then you can look at it from different perspectives. So Halo AR can be done just like Aurasma, HP Reveal later, now nothing, right? But when people were creating with that, they were doing it all inside of their mobile app. And all the other resources I've shared have been online studios, either web or download. Like iJack is going to be something you download and install software on your computer. Assembler, same thing, install on your computer. And then you had Arlupa and Arise that are web-based, so you don't need to install anything. But Halo stands out because it is a way for you to create inside your mobile device. So there's some great things that you could pull in, including your own 3D objects, and using their library only has a few items, but that will be growing in time. So that, that's another example of something you can build quite easily using your mobile device.
So Halo AR is it an app in the iOS store or no? Because when I searched for Halo today, it came up with the Halo game. But I didn't realize it was Halo AR. So I was typing in Halo.
Mm-hmm.
I just skimmed through it real quick. So Halo AR is available through the App Store. Okay.
Both app stores, absolutely. So you can go to Android or iOS. It was just released very, very recently. You'll love it. It's really cool. And it's easy. Again, iJack is so easy. I mean, it's like those steps. First, you load your trigger image. Next, you load what video you want. It's limited to 30 seconds, but hey, it's easy, right? You upload that. Next, you get the QR code, or you have to title and describe. And then finally, they give you the QR code. When you scan this QR code, this is what appears. And what's nice about that is I can actually take, like I was showing before, I could take this trigger image and attach a different QR code every single time. So in this QR code, I'm so backwards. In this QR code, that makes this video appear. But I can use the same trigger image over and over with a different QR code. That would be perfect for your class when they're walking through, because then you get to see all the different experiences, but they're all in the same image. And that's really unique and rare because everybody else wants to use different trigger images. And once you look too much alike, you kind of have some confusion. But in this case, with iJack, you don't ever have to reuse a different image. You can use the same one.
But iJack, I have to install on the computer.
Yep. So
And
iJack would be installed.
kids access that through the app. There's no app, right?
So the iJack app is installed on your mobile device to view whatever you created.
Okay.
So, and that's going to be, I mean, a lot of the things we're creating, we're trying to make a way on a computer because of so many Chromebook users. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to view it on a mobile device. So you may be more limited in how many mobile devices you have to view it. But at the end of the day, you're trying to give them the chance to create content, which could be through the browser. Oftentimes, I'm not recommending to download and install applications. There are some out there, but they're like a stumbling block for schools now.
Yeah, because I don't remember what I was doing because, like I said, I was going through all 29 today, but I got stuck. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. I actually think it was an app that I had on my device from your last year's 31 AR VR.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember what it was. I just deleted it because it kept closing.
Yeah, sometimes it needs an update. Sometimes they just don't, they don't make it.
It just didn't work. It just was broken. So I'm like, okay, I kind of I'm cleaning up my iPads and taking off old AR apps, installing some of the new ones that you're recommending that I can use in the classroom. So that it's funny. Okay, so I need to have an AR app that I can create content. So I can use Sketchfab, or I can use iJack or Assembler EDU as well.
Yeah, I actually have 6 that I recommend. There is a blog on here that is specific to, I call it 5 different tools because Halo AR wasn't officially released yet. But that's what it was. It was talking about the different tools. So I could put that here in our chat and you're welcome to share that out, that link, because I feel like that really gave a lot for people to follow up with. Okay, that's 5 tools to begin using right now. Let me go ahead and make sure that's all posts.
So Jolie, I agree with Jolie. She's saying the struggle is too many apps. That's why she liked Google Expeditions because it had a lot of quality AR, VR tours that were already made. Teachers didn't have to prepare anything.
I think that's a good point. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm going out and researching a bunch, but I think the problem isn't that we have too much. I think the problem is often we're not looking for exactly what we want. And there's no one tool that could do it all, right? And cover everything we need. We need to go in with our objective. And that's often not talked about. We just jump in. That's a really cool tool. Let me go ahead and use that. But we don't necessarily have a goal and they're shooting for nothing. So whatever they do, okay, great. But if we have a specific objective, which typically you want to start with where your kids are struggling, what are they not getting? What year after year, where do you find that struggle happening? That's a content you really want to target. Because you can do it if they're getting it, then you've done something right. That you don't need to use all these other songs and dances, right? But if it's something that they're struggling with, that's when you really pursue. And that's where my passion comes in. People reach out and they're like, Jamie, I can't find anything for this, but this is what my kids need. And so then I go on this adventure of finding what resources are out there. And sometimes I find some great things that are universal, could be used for multiple different things. And then I find some that are very targeted and very specific to what they need. And that's on cue too. So I think that is probably your starting point. It's not that we're overwhelmed by everything because you can't know everything. I don't know everything. Kim, you don't know everything. None of us will ever know anything when it comes to that. There's just going to be, we're all beta testers, right? But when you can look very specifically for that tool, that resource that you're needing for your students, then all of a sudden that window comes like this. Then you're like, okay, but you know what to look for and you know how to research it because now you know the terms that align with it. Now you know what's possible out there because you're hearing about all this technology coming out. It's never about the tool. It's never about the tools change, but the technology and the possibilities, the door is open.
Yeah, you're 100% right, and I think you kind of refocused me as well because I'm looking at all your stuff and I'm getting like overwhelmed because I'm like, okay, what do I do? I use this to create, do this, that, the other thing. So I think you're right. Like, refocus. What is your end result? What is your learning goal? What is the objective? And then go from there and then see what's out there, what you can actually use with what resources you have. I think that's yeah, I mean, we all need to remember that, it's not all about the tech, it's about teaching using the tech, how effectively we can teach using the tech as the tool, you know? So I think, yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because it can be overwhelming. Like I'm looking at the stuff and I'm like, wow,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
like honestly and truly to be totally out there blunt, I got CoSpaces Premium, I have Merge Cube Premium, and I use Tinkercad a little bit this year with my robotics club, and I'm like, okay, I feel good with this. I feel comfortable. I'm comfortable with CoSpaces Merge. I have to keep using it so I don't forget it.
Right.
Um,
Changes.
but yeah, because it changes all the time. And even in your blog, you had said the
I
merge
want
object
to
that you were
mention
updating. It's just like
here there's a mistake. I know. But
it's
I think Kim, you bring up
good. It's a good change though. Like they updated it, and I was like, wow, you don't even need the merge cube anymore to view. Like you can,
right.
so you can view your object without the cube, which is another option. You don't have to buy the actual cubes, but
Mm-hmm.
I think if you buy the subscription, it comes with the cube anyway. At least that's
Not
what it
always, yeah. I mean, at the beginning,
when we bought it last year or 2 years ago. It came up. It came in with 25 cubes.
yeah,
I don't know
that's
now.
great. That's not always the case. That's not all the subscriptions. Some people just choose to, use it just for the subscriptions and they don't buy the package with the cubes. But, I think here, this is my goal in 31 days. And I should make this just my staple on every 31-day event. My goal is that you walk away with one.
Yeah.
If it has inspired you to test out some new things and you found one jewel to walk away with, like that's great. That's all. I never would expect people to do 31 days of this, nor would I ever expect that all 31 because they're never going to apply. I mean, I have stuff for littles, I have stuff for elementary to secondary to college. It in every subject, like that's never going to apply to anybody, right? So the variety is there so that people can find what they need and they walk away with one tool to really help them teach their students.
Yeah, I honestly, I think for me, the assembler EDU was the prize package.
Goal for you. Yeah, that's so cool.
So I'm gonna try to even like I was even thinking, okay, let the kids create and then share. Like I don't have to give them anything. Like let them just create something that's like a sculpture or an art, a building using this type of shape or measurement or whatnot, and let them build and see what they come up with, and then share their resources in the EDU classroom, which
yeah,
I was shocked. I couldn't believe that it had that capability. So for me, that was the winner right there.
absolutely.
That's the way I'm going to go about it. Like,
yeah,
and see what happens. But I still want to explore a little bit more.
It's nice to know what's out there. It doesn't mean you're going to use it all, but to know that things are possible also gives you insight into what you can do. Sometimes seeing some of these tools may not align perfectly with what your goal is, but to know that the technology of the browser-based technology, while you may not teach science, you may not ever need to see an animal in your space or go to a location, but there may be for you to say, well, if that happens, then I wonder if there's something out there for this. And that's exactly what started my journey in immersive technology. It was me saying, well, if Erasmus exists, what else is out there? And guess what the second tool was? Google Translate. That was my second tool that I learned about. And I was like, actually, it wasn't even Google Translate yet. Google bought out somebody called WordLens. So before Google Translate even had that product.
And dating yourself.
It was early. But that's the thing. It's like, wait a minute, if they can do this, what else is possible? And that's the best part of it, exploring what more you can do. And honestly, you may find something that sparks interest. It may be something that sparks ideas. It may not be any of these tools at all, just something that's like, hey, this technology exists. Let's find something that does. And that, that's really, again, the tools will change, but the technology is growing, and that's exciting.
Yeah. And you know what? I got excited today too, Jamie, now that I have a terrible memory, but I was in one of the apps. I don't remember which one. And I went into a coral reef scene, and it actually had scenes and so it reminded me of Google Expeditions to a point. So it had scenes with captions of what was going on in the scene and the different fish. And it had, why the coral was dying and, what can we do to, help the coral reefs, basically. And it had like 13 slides. I want to say slides. I don't know if it was Jig. I don't remember which one it was.
It's Jig Space. So you're actually able to identify the different species and the fish, and you have to tap it to know which one it is. And, what's great about Jig Workshop, which is the one that I was really pointing to this year, because Jig Space has been around for a little while, but I've never introduced it in 31 days until this year. So I included both Jig Space and Jig Workshop, but you can build your own experiences for students to then go and explore. So I built something really, simple and not educational, really. It was just more of like fun. But like I showed the transition of slides, right? And showed how they went from here to here to here to here. And I did it all on my phone. I built it all on my phone. And then once it was built, I can then share that link out. So I think it makes the concept of expeditions so much more powerful, because we can take these learning concepts. And if you know what you're already saying, you already know the content you need to cover. You've went through it multiple years, right? Yes, you're creating it, but you can reuse it and repurpose it. Or like you said, give it to your kids. Let them build incredible things. Metaverse is another good one. That is a learning curve. I'm going to tell you. I run into every time I do it. Metaverse is a learning curve. It's for people that want to go deeper. But I will tell you that there are kids doing incredible things in Metaverse, because the door is wide open, and all the teachers are saying, like Rochelle Dene Poth, she's amazing. She's like, I don't know all the pieces to this, but I give it to my kids, and they start building, and they help each other, and they do incredible things. So
and you just facilitate it, and you just watch
that's
it.
Right. That's right. You don't need to know it all. They'll figure it out, and they'll do incredible.
I totally agree. Well, we're going to end on that note, because that is a high. I am so thankful that you came on today. And I'm so thankful for your 31 days of AR and VR and EDU. I really appreciate all the hard work that you're doing every day for the month of March.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going through it because I'm trying to think ahead, and I want to be able to have something prepared for next year for class. So, I'm just, trying to be proactive. So 100%. I appreciate everything you're doing, and show your book. Tell us where your book's available.
Yeah. It's on Amazon. It's also on ISTE. If you're an ISTE member, I would recommend going through ISTE, just because you get a better discount. But the immersive classroom, it's like 31 days times 1,000. I don't know. It's all there. And it's constantly evolving. Those tools are going to change, from one book to the next. It's already, there's already been some changes in there, but at the end of the day, it's just always staying on your toes, being ready to embrace what our students are going to have in their future and how to best support them in the skills that they need, but also really meeting them where they're at so that they're learning that depth and getting that understanding. It doesn't always mean AR, VR, but there are a lot of incredible things out there. Like there's a lot of incredible makerspace concepts or, all these other topics that you can go down as well. So it's one of those tools, and it should help really support your kids and maybe even start a love of immersive technology, future careers.
Well, you know what? I think what I'm going to do is for me, for my personal goal for 2022 school year is to, as long as I'm teaching, because this year I'm not teaching, is to really like push this out, get familiar with it, push it out, and then have you check out some of the things that I, hopefully had students create, and then maybe you could come back on at the end of the school year next year.
It would be cool if your students came on and highlighted the things that they're working on. I will tell you that there's nothing that brings me more joy than to see what students and teachers are doing with these concepts. And I can share it all day long. Oh, this is great. This is great. This is great. But at the end of the day, people want to hear what other people are doing. They want to see what other people are doing. And when that is just shared out across the board, that benefits us all. And so please do share that. I would love to share it out with everyone.
I definitely will. As long as I'm teaching STEM next year, I will definitely, because I just feel like this is the way that, like, this is it. Like, this is what the kids need. This is what we need to be exposing them to. Let them be creators, not consumers. And let them think out of the box. We can't do it all for them. So I thank you so much.
Thank you.
I can't believe how much information you shared, and I'm just very thankful, Jamie. So I appreciate it. So that's going to wrap up our show for tonight. Again, that was Jaime Donally from AR, VR, and EDU. What I'm going to do really quick is share my screen. So can you see my screen? You can see my screen, Jamie, right?
I can. Looks great.
All right. Well, one time I thought it was sharing and I wasn't. So now I just ask. So if you'd like to visit my website, it's thesweettalk.com. That's the SUITE talk.com. And visit the homepage. You can subscribe to The Sweet Talk on YouTube, Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts as well. The latest episode and podcast will be here on the homepage. If you'd like to support my mission and become a sponsor, you can fill out the sponsor form and I will get back to you as soon as I can. You can also click on the episode tab and watch and listen to any past episodes that I've done with guests, and that'll all be displayed here in the spreadsheet. You can also check out my Jamboard page. The Jamboard page is just updated it a few weeks ago, so you can check out my presentation here. And if you want to share an idea with me on how you're using Jamboard in the classroom with students, you can certainly fill out the share idea form with me, and I will showcase your Jam right in here in this presentation with other educators as well. And I have an idea board for Jamboard as well, so you can check that out. And that's it. So back to Jamie.
That's so cool.
Thank you so much again for being on. I really appreciate it. You don't hang up. I need to send you.
Okay.
So, with that being said, everyone, thank you for tuning in. It's nice to be back on the air. And have a great evening, everyone. Bye.
Good night.